Hello, people. Welcome back. It's me, your good old friend, Aramal, or Anubis, you can call me. And today, we're gonna do a bit of an introduction for either newer people or people who want to improve a strong Crusader. So, to make things first, I have not finished all of the classic trials because I just didn't get to it because of time constraints. But I did get to some of the Sands of Trials, the Sands of Time trials, which are all pretty good in all fairness, but some of them can get pretty tough. For example, an Oppressive Advance. This in general is a pretty tough mission where you're against a ton of opponents, and because of that, I thought, you know what? Let's make a video where we can introduce newer people towards the game. Um, so, with the invasions off, we just do permanent peace timer for sure. Let's do it like that. Um, and we just do everything at very high. That way we can just get a castle going and be done with it. So to display what we need, let's go over. Uh, let's go to canyons. Okay. So to begin, this map is not just here; it's also in the campaign. It's mission 28 or something, I believe, somewhere along those lines, in the first Strong Crusader trial. In that campaign, you're settled around here. So first thing we're gonna take into mind is economy types. So for that, we're gonna place our castle. Let's put it over here for now. So just place some stockpiles. So there are a couple of different economy types in this game. So the first major one, if we're gonna slow the game down so we can actually speak normally, the first major one is a food-based economy. And the best way to do this is with wheat farms, mills, and bread production. Because bread production is the fastest in the game, it's the most cost efficient, but the downside of bread production is you do need quite a bit of land, of grass to get going. So let's say, for example, this is what you start with. It's maybe not the smartest choice to just go for a full-on bread production. Mainly because if you're gonna develop your economy around it, you're gonna need a lot more than this small grass scrape. The second one is stone production, which is arguably one of the better ones as well, because stone is generally very cost efficient and it's very fast. Downside is you're reliant on having stones near your base, and in general the quarries take up quite a bit of space, as you can see, so you can place them really higher up in the hill. Then we have got iron production, which is very dependent on the map, because most maps don't have a ton of iron, so you can't really place enough to make it a full-on production. But there have been missions where I've used full-on iron productions to finish the missions, because iron is the most expensive resource in the entire game. So if you get a good going for it, it's gonna be great. But you will encounter missions where you neither have a great amount of grass, you don't have any stone nearby, and maybe a little bit of iron. It's a very hard task to develop a full-on economy then. So what is a backup economy you can do in cases like that? You can make an armory, make some woodcutters, or you can place, if you go to the wood, you can do auto buy when it's below 5. Something along those lines. And then you can do a Fletcher workshop. Let's place 4 of them. And then put them towards crossbows. Why? Crossbows are more expensive than normal bows, so it's a lot more cost efficient to make it like that. Let's see if there's no peacetime, but whatever. So, why is this economy still pretty good? It's very simple. It's good because it doesn't cost a lot to get into, and the only thing you really need is wood, which is the cheapest resource in the entire game. This is far from the best economy, however, because you can't turn a ton of profit with it. But when you are in a map where there is not a lot of space or you just don't have any other good resources with you, it's a very good backup plan to get an economy going. What you will face as well is there will be maps where you literally have no grass nearby, so you're fully reliant on other types of economies. So, what will you do? Well, there are a couple of backup plans, as I will place some apple farms to get some food going. What you need in those kinds of situations is very low population. Why? So we can place some... in my case, I'm playing as a Bedouin, so you run some mosques in place, or churches, and you get your following to the maxed out religion. In my case, eventually you will see that like the church will go up as we speed up the game a bit.
The people worship you, sire.
Let's place another one. It's a bit expensive to get going, but once you've got it going, like this, there we go, you can put your food on no rations. This fully negates the downside of having no grass nearby, because this is literally more cost efficient than having an economy where you constantly have to buy food. The game slows down a ton, you will lose a ton of gold, and it's just not a very efficient way to go about things. So, those are the kinds of economies. Which economy is the best? I would still say it's probably the wheat economy, where you just have a ton of wheat farms. And then we put a couple of mills down. And a couple of bread farms. Well, I will not put it like this because that irritates me. Oh Jesus, we've got lions. We're just gonna put it on low rations for now.
Recruits needed, sire. Recruits needed, sire. Recruits needed, sire.
Let's get rid of those lions quickly. There we go. Those lions are gone. Okay, so why is it so good? Because it produces so much food. It's probably the most efficient food production in the entire game. Apples don't produce a ton and they take a lot of time. Dairy farms don't produce a ton and take a lot of time as well, but dairy farms are required if you want to make crossbow archers yourself, because you need it for a tennis workshop. And, well, hops aren't really food production, and hunter's posts are almost never available. Even though, like, they're fine. They're not great, but they just never available in most missions. So, that's why bread production is the best. After that, I would say stone production and last iron mines. So, another point we're gonna get to is... in most cases, when you go into a mission, people want to build a beautiful castle. They think like, oh, let me build some walls here and make a layout like you're pretty much cosplaying the wolf. But it's almost never good compared to something like this. So doing something along these lines, for example, like, just keep in mind, let's say, for example, there's a caliph, a sultan, a saladin, and a pig. Doing something like this is so much better than just building a castle. Because building the castle takes a ton of time, it takes a ton of resources, and you're limiting yourself to a specific amount of space. Whereas when you do something like this, you just are not doing that. I do have to put a gatehouse for obvious reasons. I will always recommend you put some stairs down with both towers. And then the best way to go about things is, let's say, 10 crossbow archers per tower. When you do that, it's gonna be a much better and more efficient one. Don't fall for the trap that you just put a billion crossbow archers in the tower. Because, first of all, it's just not necessary more often than not. And secondary, what you can also do is put part of it as crossbow archers and part of it as normal archers. Why? Normal archers, even though they have a much lower damage output, they have a much higher fire rate. And against specific enemies, like for example the Caliph, normal archers tend to outperform crossbow archers. Unless you are facing the Arabian swordsman, where the crossbow archers do outperform them. Why is that? Because Caliph spams a ton of slaves, and slaves die in a single shot, no matter if it's a normal archer or a crossbow archer. So that's why you need to keep that in mind. Then we come down to some of the units. Strong Crusader has quite a lot of units now. It used to be a lot fewer. So we have the Crusader units, which are the archer, spearman, maceman, crossbowman, pikeman, swordsman, and the knight. Then we have the Arabian units, which are the Arabian bow archer, the slave, the slinger, assassin, horse archers, Arabian swordsman, and fire thrower. And the newest, obviously, the Bedouins, which are the skirmishers, sappers, camel lancer, heavy camel, demolisher, eunuch, healer, and the ambusher. So, if we're just going down to what you should and what you shouldn't pick, let's face it, Spearman is arguably the worst unit in the entire game, or close to it. They're very bad. They're just not good at all. The reason is because they are not tanky at all. They don't do the most damage. The only upside they have is they're insanely cheap to produce, because they cost 8 gold, and for 100 gold you get 5 spears. So that comes down to 140 gold for 5 units, which is very cost efficient. The other unit from the Crusaders I would never build is the Knights. They take a lot of time to build. They cost a lot of money to build because you need a horse stables. And they're just never worth it. Because they cannot kill an enemy. If you put a ton of knights at them and you run down their base, they still cannot kill their lord. Because they can't go into this castle. The archers are still pretty efficient. Then just not as good as the crossbowmen. It's simple as that. And especially when we come to the other outposts. Crossbow is probably the best archer unit in the entire game, because there are so many armored units in the game now that their value just skyrockets. Macemen are probably the best rush character together with assassins, because they're very fast and they do a ton of damage. Pikemen also insanely good. They're fast. They're not as fast as the macemen, but they're not as slow as swordsmen. They are very tanky and resistant, even against crossbow archers. They do a ton of damage, and they can dig modes. So they're pretty much the perfect melee unit. Macemen can also dig modes, by the way. Swordsmen are fine. They're not great, but that's mostly because they're super slow. But they do have a bit bigger damage output than pikemen. And they're a bit more tanky, I believe. So when we come to the Arabian units, Arabian bowmen is pretty much an upgrade to archers. They cost more gold to produce more, but they also just do more damage. Slaves, don't build them. Unless you really want to build a moat, I just never recommend getting slaves. On AIs, they're very annoying, but when you're facing AI, usually they have archers on their farms, which just means all your slaves are gonna die. Slingers suffer a singular problem, which is that they just so squishy, and they have no reach. The damage output is not that bad, but they just... what do you want, an archer or a slinger? It's a very simple question. They do not cost a lot of gold, so that's, I guess, an upside. Assassins are also insanely good unit, S tier. They're probably the best rush unit in the game. I would say better than macemen, because they can climb over walls. The damage output is lower though, and they're a lot less tanky. But that doesn't matter, because they're just invisible, so an enemy can't react to them. And horse archers are the most overpowered unit in the entire game still. It hasn't changed. Horse archers' damage output is absolutely disgusting. Especially if you combine them with engineer. I'll show the pinnacle lineup quickly. So what you do is you build a ton of
Recruits needed, sire.
there we go, some more.
Constructing siege equipment.
Okay. So now that we have these, what you do is you build a couple of shields. Then you have your horse archers. And then you just put it like this in front of the enemy. And that's it. They just will not take damage. It's still so overpowered. There's literally no counter to this. That's the unfortunate truth. I don't use it often because I don't like it. I think it's not a good interaction at all. But if you want to know the strongest tactic, use horse archers plus shields and you will win almost every time. Then we have Arabian swordsmen, who are sadly a downgrade from the normal swordsmen. The reason is they just die in 3 crossbow shots. They're super squishy against crossbow archers. And they're super slow. And fire throwers are just not worth it because they just get sniped out by archers from the enemy attacks. And last, we have the Bedouin units, the newer one. So skirmishers are actually not that bad, as people believe. They're actually pretty fine. Especially because they only cost 25 gold. So it's a good unit. Sappers are not worth it. Their entire purpose is getting down walls, but there's a unit down the line that's better for that. We have the Camel Lancer, which is good for harassment if you want to fuck up in someone's economy. Now we have the Heavy Camel, which in my opinion is one of the strongest units in the entire game. The only weakness heavy camels have is crossbow archers and melee units. Because against any Arabian lord, you can just put 60 heavy camels and they will just not die because they're so tanky. Demolishers are also very good. They're slow, but they're very resilient to archer shots because of the shield, and they are insanely strong for taking down walls because of the hammer. Then we have eunuchs, which in my opinion are just not worth it. They're too slow. They are the strongest melee unit in the game. Like, people have tested this and they've put up 200 eunuchs against 1,000 knights and the eunuchs still won because they have AoE attacks. But besides that, that's literally just a fantasy scenario because 9 out of 10 times the eunuchs would just be shot down by archers before they even reach the walls. Healers are fine, they're not great. And ambushers are a direct upgrade from fire throwers that are actually pretty usable. Especially in some specific setups. So now that we have the units out of the way, we are gonna quit this one. And we're gonna look at specific enemies. So by now, the enemy list is getting quite big. And every enemy has specific things that are strong against them and things that are weak against them. Take, for example, the wolf. Wolf has very big castles. And wolf has very good sieges. But the wolf doesn't put enough units on his walls right now. So almost always either heavy camels or horse archers are your way to siege into him. Whereas for the Caliph, you kind of need horse archers. If you don't have horse archers, your entire troops will be wiped out. The only other way to deal with Caliph is catapult bombardment, because he has very weak towers, he has very weak walls, so you can just bombard him with catapults and take down his entire keep and get it over with. But then you've got units such as Sheriff or Nizar, who are a bit more specific. Sheriff, because Sheriff uses a ton of pitch around his keep, and he tends to burn his entire castle to the ground if you get inside of it. So the best way is to send up in a small branch of your troops to tank the initial fire burst, and after that you just run it down. And the Nizar has the problem that his entire castle is submerged in water, pretty much. So you need units that can deal with that. So most of the time I use pikemen. And that is how you deal with enemies. You think out how do they build? How do they not build? Red has an insanely small castle, so it's practically just an insult to make a bunch of catapults because it's such an overkill. You can easily get away by sending a bunch of archers, killing him outside of his castle, and then just running in with a couple of troops. The same goes for the snake. The pig is where you face like another problem because he has crossbow archers, so you need units that either are resistant to crossbows or that just ignore them flat out like assassins. Pig's biggest weakness is probably literally either an assassin or a rush with mace men from a blind spot. And it also depends a lot on your mission. So if we go towards the classic trial, let's say for example, oh, I didn't know we had difficulty modes now for this new. Okay, so let's say for example Vulture's Claw. This is a fun one. So you're pretty much in with the snake against 2 caliphs and the sultan, 40,000 gold, and you have 3,000. So, what is a good way to deal with this?
Game paused.
Let's set an example, okay?
Can't place that there, my lord.
I'm gonna put all of my economy down here. We're gonna put a ton of resources into securing all of these. Well, it's probably better if we do it like this. Like that. So by slowing the game down, which you do with either the plus or the minus button on your keyboard, we just put most of our things in place so that Snake or anybody else can't hog them. In a map like this, we barely have enough space to get a good production started. And we're kind of waiting for the stone to pop up now. After that, what we're gonna do is... there we go. There's the stone. So this is one of the ways to deal with Caliph. We're gonna put a big tower here. We do want a wall here, because otherwise Caliph's units will just walk in. And what we're gonna do now is actually play some half walls, because we're out of, well, resources right now. Play some mills, like we discussed before, with the entire economy based on food. Because most of our economy is gonna be food based in this mission. We don't have much of another option.
Wood needed.
We're gonna speed up the mission a bit, so we can get a bit going.
Your grace.
Like that. What we're gonna do is... there aren't a lot of good ways to deal with a mission where the enemy has a ton of gold. You just need to milk them out, pretty much. So to do that, we're gonna make them invest a ton of resources into rebuilding their castle continuously.
Not enough wood, my lord.
Yeah, lovely.
What needs doing?
Alright, and then...
Recruits needed, sire.
so we have these crossbow archers, which we're gonna send up there. We have normal archers, which we're gonna send up there.
We are on our way. Recruits needed, sire.
So now, right now, what we're just combining the knowledge that I bestowed upon you earlier.
Our tools are manning siege equipment. My bow is yours. Instructions. This device requires skilled engineers. Mangonel ready, standing range. We await orders.
We just need to survive the first wave of the enemies. Back to it. We need some more again. Oh, that's unlucky. But you get the idea. We're trying to get Caleb to milk out his economy, and he's already burned through 10k. There isn't much we can do, unfortunately, with someone like the snake near us. But in our case, the mission is going south. So, how do we recover? How do we recover? Well, we send our king towards the snake. This is another way to deal with this. Because we are gonna need to sustain through this deficit, which we have right now. This mission is maybe not the best example because it's a hard one and the Caliph will just permanently focus you. Because that's how this AI works. Caliph in general is just an AI lord that focuses the player almost every single time. So we're just gonna build an economy instead. Which is also a good way to deal with Caliph situations. But you get the idea. This is, for me personally, this is going to be a restart in normal cases, but it's important to plan out your mission kind of before you get into it. For example, what I planned to do was I was going to plan to siege the Caliph from here because it usually works. It didn't work this time. It's my bad. It's a skill issue, unfortunately. But let's see Arabian Nights. This is one of the missions I talked about earlier. You're with a snake and a pig against a sultan and a saladin. It's a fairly easy mission. All you need to do is really just put a tower up here, put a tower down there, and survive against both their attacks, and after that you're free. Because you've got a ton of grass around you, so it's not that hard of a mission. A place of rest. That's against 2 pigs. Again, you just need to put a big tower here and wall off these other places, because the AI will force themselves down the roads that are available, and then you can just tunnel them down, pretty much. And stuff like that is important to plan out your game. If you're gonna go into the game blindly, without any, like, idea of what you can do to win, it's almost never gonna pan out well. A game like this, Rivers of Blood. You have 10k gold, so you can easily just rush 2 of the reds here, if you want to, and then you get a ton of gold influx, you get a ton of space. Or you can start an economy by baking bread production down here, and then walling this section off, so the red doesn't come in. Stuff like that. Another good thing is using map layouts. I think a good example is Red Beak, I think it's called. Yeah. So this is a mission where you don't have a ton of space. So what I would do is put a tower down here with a couple of crossbow archers around here with crossbow archers and normal archers. Build enough gold from the iron economy plus some of your wood economy, and eventually place a big tower here with like a ballista on it, and then shoot down any units, burn the Caliph out of his gold, and eventually run him down with horse archers. And once you start thinking about missions in a way like that, it's gonna be a ton easier to get through a mission or to get a mission done. So with that in mind, I think that's about enough for me for a tutorial for today. If you have any other questions, the comment section is open. Have a good one.